Today, as part of my international organization project, I'll be talking about the World Trade Organization, commonly referred to as the WTO. The following acronyms will be used in this presentation. The WTO is an international agreement of member nations committed in principle to free multinational trade through the reduction of trade barriers. As a multilateral organization, it covers goods, services, and intellectual property rights. Established by the Uruguay Round, the organization replaced GATT, or General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, on January 1, 1995. The organization is now led by Director General Pascal Lamy. Currently, there are 153 members, such as the United States, UK, France, and China. The most notable absentees, frequently referred to as observer countries, are those in the Middle East such as Iran. Some nations have been rejected in the past, while others are still attempting to meet the requirements for accession. The five main aims of the WTO are to increase international trade by lowering trade barriers, to be a forum for trade negotiations, to handle disputes among member countries, to create economic stability in the world through a multilateral system, and lastly, to cooperate with other multinational corporations. As for the structures and mechanisms of the organization, the WTO is dominated by its main decision-making body called the Ministerial Conference, which is comprised of all member countries and is required to meet at least once in 2 years for negotiating trade agreements. The major subsidiary body is the General Council, which operates in two forms, one being the dispute settlement body, which oversees the dispute settlement procedures, and the other being the trade policy review body, which constantly reviews the trade policies of each member nation. The General Council delegates responsibility to three other bodies, namely the Councils for Trade in Goods, trade-related aspects of intellectual property, and trade in services. These bodies report to the General Council as they deal with trade agreements in goods, intellectual property rights, and services, respectively. The success of the WTO in meeting its official aims is debatable. Therefore, it is best to examine both the positive and negative aspects of the organization. Firstly, the WTO's aim to liberalize international trade is considered successful. As a hypothetical example, two countries with comparative advantage on certain commodities are able to benefit from improved trade conditions if they were to specialize in products that yield a lower opportunity cost. Trade agreements can also reduce taxes on the exchange of goods and services, which leads to freer access to the foreign exchange market, which in turn leads to economic growth. However, critics claim that oftentimes less developed countries have little influence in decision-making. Some countries, especially those in sub-Saharan Africa, have faced lower real GDP per capita than they had 10 years ago. It is also argued that WTO treaties are unfairly biased towards the interests of more developed countries and multinational corporations. Lastly, critics have pointed out that free trade does not necessarily make life better for the poor, but have only resulted in a widening gap between the rich and the poor. The WTO has encountered increased economic instability, mainly due to the current economic crisis that began with the collapse of the mortgage market in the United States. It is currently involved in the Doha Development Round, which commenced in November 2001 and continues to this day. In this trade negotiation round, the WTO aims to encourage global trade by reducing protectionist measures. The major issues at hand include agriculture, industrial tariffs, trade remedies, and non-tariff barriers. However, the success of the Doha round is debated because of two problems. Firstly, the US and the European Union are asked to lower subsidies on agricultural commodities. Secondly, the newly industrialized countries such as India and Brazil are pushed by the most developed countries to lower trade barriers or imported products. As a final remark, the World Trade Organization is considered very important, especially with the globalization of this world, because it encourages foreign direct investment, which refers to the investment by overseas firms in another country. Although disputes exist in, for example, the Doha Round negotiations, the organization continuously attempts to monitor economic policies of members and observers, manage trade disputes, and administer trade agreements. As it aims to integrate MDCs, NICs, LDCs, and MNCs through its multilateral system, the WTO has certainly become a fundamental forum for trade negotiations around the world. Thank you.